Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee. Thanks for listening. Today, I am interviewing the co-founder of Puerto Rico Distillery, a father-daughter craft rum distillery located in Frederick, Maryland that's focused on family, culture, and traditions as embodied in Puerto Rican Moonshine. Please welcome Crystal Rivera. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
See, I did that. I usually go with a little too much energy. I had to attenuate it a little bit, bring it down. If I go too high, it's like, all right, a little less. If I go too low, it's like, come on, man, give me a little bit more energy. So I was right there.
All right. No, I appreciate it. I'm an introvert, so I can meet you right here, and then we'll just build up.
We're on a very similar page. I'm coming up on a birthday, and I'm living that real, like, hey, you got to be out there, man. It's like, I don't want to be. So obviously, I've had some of the drinks, so we'll talk about that. But give us those vital stats. Describe your work, and what was that aha moment to really tell you or inform you to go into business?
Yeah. So in Puerto Rico, pitorro, that's the nickname for it, is our version of moonshine, and there's a long-standing tradition of it. I was born on the island along with my sister. And although we were born there shortly after, we started moving around because my dad was in the Navy. And so growing up, going back to visit the island was always something that my parents, really had it being like a priority to keep us rooted in our culture and everything like that. When we're younger, it's the food, it's the language, it's things like that. And when we came to an age appropriate level, rum became part of that educational experience. In Puerto Rico, that age appropriate level is not exactly the same over here. I'm not going to say exactly what it is. But it's you're drinking with your family because you're learning how to do it responsibly, So both me and my sister, we drank with our abuelo, with our dad, and they're teaching us the history of it, the etiquette to it. And that became something that we would look forward to the 1 or 2 times a year that we would go down to the island to visit our family. And 2018, right when Hurricane Maria was kind of happening, that was a moment that had a lot of people shook and obviously scared. For me, once I knew that everyone was okay, I found myself asking what was important. I used to do work that I enjoyed. I worked in nonprofit and with the Restaurant Association of Maryland, and then the National Restaurant Association in their education foundation. So I was kind of in that restaurant management and culinary arts field, but I was helping other people reach their dreams, not necessarily pursuing my own. There was a moment that my dad and I were just kind of looking at each other being like, wouldn't it be nice if we pursued this crazy dream that you've always had? My dad has always wanted to have a distillery and to do pitorro the way that he thought that it really should be, to do it justice. And I was like, well, I have savings. I can leave my job, live off my savings for a little bit. And, we can give this a real shot. And that's kind of how that leap took. It was a year of doing research, a year of looking for the space that we wanted to set up shop. And we opened our doors late March of 2020, right when everything was kind of closing down. So starting off, not exactly how we expected, but I've just kind of looked at it like a slow motion grand opening.
Love it. So I heard in there a little rum 101 that was going on. I think that's the best way to go about it, though. Like, as I talk, and this is, I guess, my snobbishness that's coming in. I know what to look for in things. And I like when I came across like your stuff, I think it was in like maybe Wine Source or something in Baltimore. And I was like, all right, I was like, what's this about? What's this rum about? Because usually around, like, my mom likes rum, so I have to kind of vet certain things. I was like, all right, what's a good rum and so on. And I want to be in. it was just like, okay, this is quality. I didn't finish the bottle. The bottle was supposed to, I finished the bottle. It was supposed to be for her. I ended up drinking the bottle. I was like, all right, let me sort this out. Let me be a better son. But yes, I think going through that process of sitting down with someone and kind of learning the culture that's attached with it, and learning the story that's attached with something that adds meaning to it. That's as valuable as having the drink, and that camaraderie, that family, that tradition, that unity. That makes a lot of sense. And I always go back to, it's not rum, but I always go back to, this is one time in the barbershop, I was hanging out with one of my buddies, and he pulled out the wild bottle of like mamajuana, and I was like, all right, this is what we're doing right now. It's like, you got a razor in your hand, G. You can't be cutting my hair with the razor. Can we? So, but it's still, I remember that more than sitting and maybe drinking a really quality drink. I remember the camaraderie more than anything else. Mm-hmm. So tell me about bringing this product and other Puerto Rican favorites to the region, like in honoring that history, that background, and the history of rum. Where does it fit within this market, and what's the response been? I know it's been that kind of cyclical, long-term grand opening, but what's that response been so far?
It's been good and better than we expected, all things considered, especially. We knew that there was a market for anything Puerto Rico related before opening the distillery, and still to this day, although we're not as active. My family also has a nonprofit called Cultura Planera. That in the DMV region, we play bomba and plena music. And so we'll put on community events like in local parks. Most lately, we've been with the Sandy Spring Museum over in Montgomery County. Yeah. So, and we'll, put together stuff that you can have live music, teach your kids something about the island without necessarily going to the island, and just kind of create that environment here. And every time that we've done something, there's a lot of Puerto Ricans here, probably more than people realize. We're just spread out.
Yep. I mean, it's like, I like dipping into the culture in not in a vulture way, but in an appreciative and in a learning way. And again, going back to just those experiences, I remember my first job, just in that DMV area, and I was having a hard time. You're out of college. You're like, what am I doing? Who am I? And, I was in an office. Somehow I lucked into this job. Like, I don't speak Spanish. I spoke it all right then, but I am terrible. And, ended up working in a multilingual call center. So Spanish speaking call center. And it was two people that kind of took me under their wing. And one dude was a Puerto Rican dude who looks just like my actual dad. And the running joke was, that's your dad and that's your mom. Like, the Cuban lady in there is like, that's your mom. And it's like, you're adopted. You're one of us now. And it was always just kind of like, yo, you're looking out for me. And this kind of wisdom and this sharing thing that I always remember fondly. And whenever there was something like, yo, this is what used to happen on the island back in there, it's like, yeah, tell me more, Jorge. Tell me more. So it's on my list of places to go once things get somewhat normal. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely.
So tell me about the process of making Pitoro. How does it differ from like Bacardi and other rums, and how experimental do you get with ingredients and techniques? I've seen some flavors, and I want to learn a little bit more about this.
Sure. So rum is any spirit that you're working with sugar cane, but there's a lot of different ways that you can get to that starting point. So you can be working with fresh sugarcane juice. You can be working with granulated sugar, like raw sugar. You can be working with blackstrap molasses. So depending on what you're using will give you different flavor profiles. And so when most people think of like a Bacardi type rum, they're thinking of something more more neutral, more lends itself to cocktails very
Sure.
easily. And there's a time and a place for that. For what we do with Pitorro, it's a combination of sugar, granulated sugar, and molasses that gives us the specific flavor profile that we're looking for. Also the yeast varietal, not to get too nerdy, but the specific yeast that we're using is important in how it ferments and then kind of expresses itself upon distillation. And all of that gets you to a very specific, what I'm looking for at least, a very specific nose and taste that I can smell something and taste something blind and say, this is Pitorro, this is not. This is good Pitorro, this is not necessarily the best quality.
This is mid-grade. I like that. I'm a wizard of the nose and the taste as well. So you're speaking my language. You're speaking my language there, and I like the nerdy stuff. Like get nerdy with it. I mean, I think you're the second person from a distillery I've had on, so I like to get into the nerdiness of it.
What I'm looking for in Pitorro is a little bit of funk to it in the nose that some people will compare to like a rum agricole in other parts of the Caribbean. The taste has a lot more of the flavor. You can really taste the nature of the sugarcane. And there's like a little bit of pepperiness to it, like a brightness that is just kind of like livens it up. It's a big personality type of rum. So when you're drinking it on its own, all of us, our stuff that we do, I always recommend that people like ease into it. It is 100 proof. But it's 100 for the sake of tradition, not for the sake of getting you like wasted or anything like that. So if you're having what we call the classic, or, if you're on the island and it's unflavored, you call it sin curar, without, curing or flavoring. So if you try that one, I always recommend you take like a baby sip to shock the taste buds. And then when you try it again, it's going to open up more and you're going to get more of those notes that I was talking about. With the other flavors, it's still strong. It's still 100, but the flavor of whatever you're tasting, if it's a traditional, it's got raisins, prunes, and cranberries. If it's like the almond, then it has the almond flavor, as well as some honey and brown sugar. The flavor like mellows it out and like smooths out that bite. So don't be fooled that it's smoother. It's not strong.
I dig it. Don't get caught up. So what is one part of the process in the distillation process, or even like the business side of things, do you think like is crucial that others might overlook when they're trying to put either their product out there or working with customers? Tell me about that.
So for everything that we do, I know you're familiar because you mentioned it. The family, the culture, and the tradition are first and foremost. So as we are making decisions, we are constantly questioning, if this is true to the tradition. If it's not, that doesn't mean it's a deal breaker. We tend to filter our pitorro so that the customer is getting 100% of like the liquid and no filler fruit to take up the volume of the bottle. But traditionally you wouldn't do that. Typically you leave the fruit in the bottle to partially act like as an identifying factor. If you see slices of mango, then you're like, oh, that color, it may be similar to the other flavor, but I know that that's mango. But also, as long as the fruits are still in there, the curando process is still happening. So for us to be able to accurately advertise that this is 100, we have to take that out. So for for us, I would say like that crucial component is the tradition and like we can move towards modern aspects, like how we did with that filtering decision, but it's with a deliberate like thought process and purpose in mind.
So it's balancing like what you're doing with what the tradition looks like, and because I've had a few, we have as quasi Latinx folks that come through, and it's like, what is this bottle, this suspicious bottle with this fruit in the bottom? It's like, oh, you eat the fruit. It's like, that's what we're doing. So like, I want to say it was like last Christmas, one of my girl's kids, his family's from Puerto Rico, and they came back with a bottle. I was like, what is this? He's like, oh yeah, just enjoy. I was like, why are you just eating the fruit? I was like, you're going to be lit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we warn people when they do it at home.
So you touched on this a little bit, I think. So currently I see a bunch of different options on there. I see a few options that were on deck, tamarind, passion fruit. What's the most popular flavor, and what are some ingredients that are traditionally found on the island that are kind of challenging to source here, or that they don't have that same, like this doesn't fit for this market?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So by far the most popular that we have, and my personal favorite, is the traditional, the one that I mentioned, having raisins, prunes, and cranberries. And that's partially because of the history behind it. So we call it traditional because generationally, my great grandfather's generation would have been drinking it straight. It would have been working long, hard days in the field, want to take the edge off the day, but also economically, they didn't have disposable income to be spending on the flavoring ingredient. That was very much a luxury. So my dad likes to say that my grandfather's generation, my abuelo, basically wimped out, and they were like, we don't want to drink it straight anymore. That's too hardcore. Like, let's find a way to flavor this and make it more mellow. Yeah. So raisins and prunes across the island is pretty much like the first recipe that people came up with. It was shelf stable and a good economic price point. And there may be a third ingredient that's unique to your particular family, or maybe you just keep it with the two. So in our family, we have the cranberries be that third ingredient my dad added. So I find that the tartness of the cranberries balances out the deeper notes of the other fruits. Yeah. And so people try that and they immediately like get nostalgic, and so it's my abuelo's recipe. So I'm a little biased, but for me, it's like first and foremost, like that I can have like anytime, and it's going to be like a tried and true one. As far as like the seasonal ones, I would say are, I don't know if it's because people know that they're not around forever, but the tamarindo, the tamarind that we recently came out with, we plan on doing that once a year. And that's because it's one of the more difficult ones to source the tamarind. We use fresh, whole tamarindo. My abuela lives with my with my parents down the street, and so we bring her like a big sack of tamarindo, and she just peels them while she's watching novelas.
It's great.
Sack to sack. But we're using like the real ingredients, and that way, like it's that traditional, like you taste tamarindo and people are like, whoa. That's one that people, because it's harder to find and more labor intensive, people taste that and they're like, yeah, that's the stuff. The other one that we came out with was the honey mango. That was a collaboration with a fashion line, Details Matter. They're down in Puerto Rico, that we were really excited about. So it's got mango puree and honey from the University of Maryland. And so, finding that balance and just kind of striking that chord. But Yeah, there's been some that we wanted to do, but we haven't been able to pull off yet because it's, we just can't get the ingredient. Bili is with Genepa. So Genepa, I don't know what the English word for it is, but it's got like a green shell. It's kind of like the size of a fat grape. And the shell's kind of hard. You can crack it with your teeth or with your nails. And then on the inside, it's like a soft, but like there's a seed in the middle. So you got to be careful when you're sucking out the pulp. And they make that in Vieques. And we've been wanting to do that. We even did a little test batch when we found we were able to get our hands on it, but it spoiled. I think there was like some bacteria. And so for now, we're back to the drawing board unless we can come up with a good source for canepas. But yeah, it's not always easy to come up with the same recipes down there.
Yeah, I mean, there are certain things that are great, and then when you get them here, you're like, oh, that's not here. Like, I don't know, like I look at beef and it's like, oh, this Wagyu. It's like, that is Japanese. So why do we have Wagyu here? It's like, no, certain things are from the place. Like, we might have an approximation or what have you, and I get a little snobbish sometimes. Like, that's not traditional. That's not what it is. Cool. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, if the spirit of what you're doing, and obviously what you're doing has the tradition embedded in there, that's the tenement it's running on family and those different elements, that's going to be on point or what have you. So it's just an open canvas, I think, to kind of extend, and using that as the beginning, like thought, like, oh, yeah, this makes sense. This is what we're going to do. This has been vetted. Everyone has had their say. This is good.
Yeah, definitely.
The last question I have before I get to some rapid fire questions that you should be terrified of as an introvert, you should be terrified. Small business owners discover hidden talents all the time. Necessity is the mother of invention. What talent would you like to have most? No, let me say it differently. What talent would you most like to have that you think would help you in a distillery?
I don't know if this counts as a talent. So, or if it's more of like a knowledge skill set. But I have been taking active steps towards this because of my desire to attain this is learning ASL. So Frederick has a pretty large, deaf and hard of hearing community, and especially with the pandemic, it's been difficult. They can't read lips as easily as they've been able to. And so I've always had that interest in it. I found it fascinating and just never had the opportunity to learn. I finally bit the bullet and I went ahead and signed up for classes at our local community college here in Frederick. So in a couple of weeks, I start my first class with ASL level 1. I've gotten some basics, signs and the alphabet, but I've essentially reached the point that YouTube can no longer teach me what I need to know. I need to just go ahead and manually get my hands dirty. But yeah, I want to be able to meet that community, seeing as we are here. People make the effort to learn Spanish, and it's always appreciated. So I just want to recognize that.
I dig it. I mean, you can't just do like this all the time, just like the motion of drinking. It's like, what are you saying? It's like money. It's like, what? Like, that's the exchange. It has to be more than that. It has to be deeper than that. And yeah, I think that's great of looking at that customer base, that potential community base. And ultimately it goes to meeting people where they're at and being able to communicate. So I definitely applaud that. And it's ever growth, always growth. That's important.
Absolutely.
All right. So I got some rapid fire questions for you. You're going to hate me after these.
All right.
Just so you know.
Let's go.
There are 5 questions, and with them, unless you really, really, really want to provide extra context, you can just answer them. Like I said what I said. The answer is the answer. All right. First question. What's your favorite movie?
Final Destination.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
I like it.
Okay. because this has been recent. I've even seen it in very particular supermarkets. Coquito or pina colada?
Pina colada.
Okay. What is your favorite journey? I try to live vicariously through people when they travel. And it's like, I haven't been able to travel. So when people tell me a little bit that they've gone somewhere, I like to like live vicariously through that. So what has been your favorite journey?
So my favorite travel experience?
Yes.
Rapid fire, so I'm going to say Hawaii. I've been there a couple of times, and I'm always fascinated with similarities between Hawaii and Puerto Rico.
You know what? That's actually a good one, and I never thought. Okay, cool. This one is kind of a two-parter. Podcasts, music, or silence in the distillery, and if it's not silence, what are you listening to?
Music out loud, and then podcasts in my ear.
Okay. Any particulars?
Podcasts
or more music? Little inside baseball there, if you will.
Typically, we have some bomba and plena music going. We have it going on right now. I hope it's not messing up the audio. I have like a whole list of podcasts that like I just keep constant, and I listen to it like at 1.5 so that I can just like get through as much as possible.
I love it. That's the best way to listen to it. Last one I have. This is a ridiculous one. If you had to describe Puerto Rico Distillery in 3 emojis, what would they be?
A Puerto Rican flag, the rum glass, and the happy drool face emoji.
You had the best response to that question, by the way. Usually I was like, I don't use emojis. I was like, you're lying.
Oh, no, I use emojis and I use memes like no one's business.
Okay, we're going to be friends today. If you're a meme person, we're going to be friends. Okay, I can dig it. Okay, that's all the questions that I have. And I want to thank you so much for coming onto this podcast. We did it. We made it happen. So I want to give you the opportunity to, an invitation to shamelessly plug away. PRD, do it.
You can find us at www.puertoricodistillery.com. Social medias are all kind of correlated. So at Puerto Rico Distillery for Instagram, at PR Distillery for Twitter. That's not that active. But Facebook, just look up Puerto Rico Distillery. You'll find us there. We're with the COVID situation. Feel free to place curbside orders on our online store, and we'll like safely go ahead and get you taken care of. But you can also find us on our website. You can find the list of stores that you can find Clandestino, our rum. We're located throughout Maryland, and the only place out of state is in Centerville, Virginia for the Coast Guard exchange. So if you're military, you can get a little military discount too.
So there you have it, folks. Get some rum. Get some Puerto Rico Distillery rum. I am Rob Lee for Crystal Rivera of the Puerto Rico Distillery. I'm Rob Lee saying that there's rum, booze, culture, all of that good stuff in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.